In the U.S. Navy, there was an unspoken rule. During the hot summer, white sailors could swim every day, but black sailors were only allowed in the water on Tuesdays. But Carl, a black man, ignored that rule and jumped straight into the sea. The officers ordered him to be dragged out, but he swam so fast that no one could catch him. Carl came from a family of farmers who had worked the land for generations. His father didn't want him to end up the same way, so when Carl grew up, he sent him to join the Navy. It was his only chance to change his fate. With his father's hopes in his heart and his favorite radio in hand, Carl set off. But when he arrived, he realized that black men held the lowest positions in the Navy. They were only allowed to cook or do chores. Because he broke the rules, Carl was punished and locked in confinement. Yet the captain noticed his courage and exceptional talent and decided to recommend him to the Navy diving school to train as a rescue diver. When Carl arrived at the academy, he was turned away by the instructor simply because he was black. But Carl didn't give up. He stood outside the gate the entire day until the instructor, moved by his determination, finally let him in. However, what awaited him inside were hostile stares and a mouthful of spit from his white teammates. The instructor even held a welcome ceremony for him, but the other trainees said they wouldn't live with a black man and moved out immediately. Only one awkward young man agreed to stay with him because he stuttered and was also disliked by the others. Late that night, Carl was jolted awake by a bucket of cold water. The instructor called it morning training, but turned a high-pressure water hose on him, pushing him underwater to test how long he could hold his breath. It was obvious he was trying to make Carl quit, but remembering his father's words, Carl endured it. The next day, during an underwater welding exercise, one of the trainees got trapped. Carl volunteered to dive down with another sailor to rescue him, but as they were helping, the ship's structure collapsed again. The other white diver panicked and swam away, leaving Carl alone. Carl pushed through the danger and pulled his teammate to safety. Later, the instructor held a ceremony to commend the act, but the recognition went to the white coward who had fled. Everyone knew the truth, but no one spoke up, except the rescued man, who gave Carl a look of respect. Despite the unfairness, Carl never got discouraged. With sheer willpower, he finished first in every single training task. Then one day, Carl received heartbreaking news. His father had passed away from illness. For the first time, the strong-willed Carl broke down. He went to a bar to have a drink, but the bartender, seeing he was black, told him they were out of alcohol. His fellow trainees told him to get out. Even the instructor stepped in and said, "This place doesn't welcome black men. No matter how good you are, this school will never let you graduate." That was the last straw. Carl challenged the instructor to a contest to see who could hold their breath underwater the longest. If he lost, he'd quit voluntarily. If he won, his expelled roommate would be reinstated. The instructor agreed. When the water reached their noses, the clock started. 1 minute and 15 seconds, neither flinched. At 3 minutes, their faces began to twist in pain. At 4 minutes, the instructor's nose started to bleed. In the end, Carl won. A mere trainee had just beaten a proud white officer. The commander was furious. He chewed out the instructor and ordered him to find a way, anyway, to get rid of Carl. He would not allow a black man to graduate while he was in charge. A few days later, Carl returned to the dorm to find the instructor waiting. The instructor warned him not to attend the final exam, saying he wouldn't get a fair chance anyway. But the next morning, Carl showed up at the testing site without hesitation. The rules were simple. Assemble a set of parts underwater correctly, and you pass. The parts were packed in a tool bag and dropped to the bottom of the sea. The commander secretly ordered the instructor to cut Carl's bag, scattering all the pieces across the ocean floor.